What's going on, everybody, and welcome to Rock Video Rental. I am Brandon, and with me, as always, is Caleb. Caleb, how's it going?
It's going, when you get an opportunity to hang out with Michael Scott and the gang, it's always a good week.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Man, I guess not until I started writing down the cast for this show did I realize how many essential characters are in this.
Yeah, no, I totally forgot. I mean, not saying that he's essential, but I totally forgot some of the things that took part in this episode, not to jump too far ahead. So,
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Before we jump too far ahead, you been watching anything good?
I've watched more than the average week. Um, first thing I watched was Oblivion, which is
Okay.
a Tom Cruise movie from 2013.
Hmm.
Totally. I've actually had it like on my list for a long time of wanting to watch it. I just never really got around to it. Um, Actually, it's a little bit funny because I think when we worked together, somebody had the soundtrack to this movie on the work server. Because I swear I remember listening to it when we were at the same job. But yeah, so anyways, it was pretty good. I always it's a futuristic thing, and I like unique interpretations, and it was definitely more unique than most. It was a little sloppy, and a little difficult to follow, but I appreciated the new way that the new direction they were trying to take things.
Rock.
Um, Man, I thought there was another one. One that I just finished was Blade Runner 2049, which came out in 2017. Been meaning to watch that. I was not putting high hopes on it because, I mean, I liked the first one so much and I knew it was going to be difficult to follow up. I didn't hear the greatest things when it originally came out in 2017. Um, and so I watched it. It was good. It was all right. I understood what they were going for. I think I mentioned to you actually. I really probably should have rewatched the original one before watching this one because they made some references and it took me a little while to connect all the dots.
Yeah.
But but it was good. I would probably say that I enjoyed Oblivion better than Blade Runner 2049. So
Rock.
I thought there was one other one, but maybe not. So, anyways, what about you? Anything good on your list?
Still continuing on with Doogie Howser. Um, about in the middle of the second season, I think. Uh, Started rewatching How I Met Your Mother again,
Rock.
and every time I go back and rewatch it, I always forget how much I like that show. And it's
You know
probably
why,
one of my
right?
top five favorite shows.
You know why, right?
What?
Because every time you get to the end of the show, you think you hate it so much because it ends so poorly.
Oh yeah, that did kind of crap the bed.
Yeah, so you don't think of it as a good show because usually when you finish it, you're just like, man, that really sucked. So then you
Yeah,
don't remember how good it actually was until you go back and start at the beginning.
right. Uh, yeah, I guess this time around, I'm just like kind of noticing how annoying of a character Ted is.
Oh my God. He's actually like a total tool.
I told my wife while we are watching this, I'm like, this show kind of reminds me of Seinfeld in the way that all the characters are funny except for the main character. Or like Seinfeld, all the characters are great except for Jerry, where Jerry's like the least funniest character on Seinfeld, or like Ted's the least funny character on How I Met Your Mother.
I can see that connection there.
Yeah. Other than those two things, which is funny because that's a double dose of Neil Patrick Harris. But man, what else have I watched? Oh, I watched a couple um, WWE shows. I
Okay.
told you I was watching that one. It's like WWE's Most Wanted Treasures or something like that.
Oh yeah.
That's on A&E. Basically, Triple H and Stephanie McMahon get a hold of these old wrestlers to go try to find artifacts like from their career, so they can put them on a display at WWE headquarters. It's pretty interesting. You get some cool stories, and you get to see like how these wrestlers act in real life, kind of thing. Outside of their characters. The most interesting one was the Undertaker because Undertaker is like notorious in his like 30-year career of never breaking his character. So it's kind of cool to like see his real personality that fans never got to see.
That's funny.
Uh, Other thing I was watching, A&E's been doing a biography series about like old school wrestlers too. I watched Macho Man one, Stone Cold, Roddy Piper, and then I've about halfway done with the Booker T one. That one's pretty good. But and then two other biography series I've been watching. There's they're both on Vice. They're called, one of them's Dark Side of the Ring, where it takes like stories from professional wrestling and like controversial stories and just crazy things that have happened and talked about them. You get like a whole bunch of backstory and stuff, and uh, some are like super interesting, almost like 30 for 30 style.
Okay.
Yeah, and even if you're not a wrestling fan, you might find interest in those. And they also have another series that just came out. They just had their first episode yesterday, and it's called Dark Side of Football. The first episode was on Chad Ochocinco,
Huh.
or Chad Johnson,
I feel
and
like they could have started with OJ Simpson, but
yeah, it could go right for the top. But I heard this will have episodes on like players being addicted to pain pills
yeah.
and like gambling and stuff like that. So that should be pretty interesting. It's not as good as Dark Side of the Ring, but it's pretty good. But other than that, that's pretty much it. I guess I could tell you what else I did watch, and that is season 5, episode 13 of The Office,
Oh yeah.
titled Stress Relief. So let's get into it. So, one of the probably fan favorite episodes of The Office, in one of the most watched episodes of The Office ever. Quite possibly the greatest cold opening ever
Yes. Yes.
for a TV show, let alone, just The Office, like an entire TV series. So here's the plot for it. Dwight's too realistic fire alarm gives Stanley a heart attack. When he returns, Michael learns that he is the cause of Stanley's stress. To remedy the situation, he forces the office to throw a roast for him. I will say that I think this is the first episode of The Office that I ever seen,
Really?
which is a great one to really dive into, and I can get into that a little bit in trivia. But I'll start with the cast here. I mean, most people have seen The Office, but in case you haven't, we got Steve Carell as Michael Scott, Rainn Wilson as Dwight Schrute, John Krasinski as Jim Halpert, Jenna Fisher as Pam Beasley, Angela Kinsey as Angela, Ed Helms as Andy Bernard, Oscar Nunez as Oscar, Leslie David Baker as Stanley, Brian Baumgartner as Kevin, BJ Novak as Brian, Mindy Kaling as Kelly, Phyllis Smith as Phyllis, Creed Bratton as Creed Bratton, Paul Lieberstein as Toby, and Kate Flannery as Meredith. The reason I named off all those is, like I said at the beginning of this episode, is that I never realized how essential every character is to this show.
Well, you forgot a very main character in Jack Black.
And Jessica Alba and Cloris Leachman.
Dude, I totally forgot that that all took part in this episode.
Oh yeah, uh, I did too for a second. I knew it happened in the series, but I forgot it was this episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically the episode starts off with Dwight being kind of pissy that he did a PowerPoint presentation about um, fire drills and like safety stuff. So then he decides he's gonna like set a fire in a trash can in the office, and he rigs up like all the doors so people can't get out, and chaos ensues. We get some pretty hilarious stuff. Like one of my favorite parts is when Kevin goes into the lunchroom and he grabs a chair and breaks out the glass. So he's like ripping out the snacks like during all the chaos.
I think my favorite part during the chaos is when Angela throws the cat up to Oscar.
Yeah, save Bandit. Yeah, Oscar gets up in the ceiling tiles, and then Angela throws a cat up, and it like goes up into the ceiling and then drops down, flows through a tile. That always gets me too. Another part that's hilarious is when Dwight, like everybody's panicking, and then Dwight lights firecrackers and throws them down, and Andy yells, "The fire's shooting at us!"
Uh,
So it basically just like ends with them, everybody just going nuts, and then Dwight lets off a like an air horn and tells everybody that it was just a drill, and then Stanley collapses to the ground. Um, Michael jumps on top of him because he thinks he's having a seizure, and he crams his wallet into his mouth so he doesn't swallow his tongue. And he does one of the great lines of the series where he says, "You will not die, Stanley. Barack is president. You are black, Stanley." Which makes me laugh every time I watch that episode.
oh yeah.
So that's kind of where we get into like the beginning of it, where the next scene we see is Michael and Dwight sitting in front of the CEO, David Wallace, because Dwight caused like crazy amounts of damage, and like what he did was like reprehensible, and basically he's in trouble. But Michael being Michael kind of steals the scene where he's like, we're not mad at you, and he's like, no, we're mad, like you caused uh what you did caused Stanley to have a heart attack. Oh, and there's another favorite part of this episode where Michael like stands up from the table, and he's like, oh, and he walks up to the window, and he like looks out the window of the office, and he takes like a deep breath, and he goes, "The city." Then he turns
I,
around and starts like
I wonder if
talking
that
to
was
Dwight.
scripted.
With this show, I really doubt that was.
Oh man. I would seriously, I mean, everybody always has that dream of, oh, how cool it would have been to be an actor.
Hmm.
With a show like this, I mean, I'm sure all of them had a hard time, but I would have had such a hard time not laughing.
Yeah, and if you've never checked out the Office Ladies podcast that Pam and Angela have, it's definitely worth checking out because they tell kind of like all these behind the scenes stories. They haven't reached this episode yet, but I listened to the one they did on the dinner party, and they said that there were so many times where they had to like stop filming because they're laughing so hard. And even there's scenes left in that where you can see people smiling at times where like Michael and Jan are fighting with each other. But so
Yeah.
I'm assuming it probably happens a lot on this show.
Oh gosh, I can't
Um,
imagine.
So, now after all this happened, they have to take CPR training, because no one really knew what to do when Stanley collapsed. So, this woman brings in this dummy, and um, it starts off with Kevin like doing the CPR on it, and he's like running out of breath, and he just stops, and he's like, you know what? He's like, I can't, just call it. So then Michael gets down, and he's gonna do it, or first he makes Stanley do it, and he's like pushing on Stanley's back and like stressed about. Uh, that's after when Stanley comes back, and they're gonna make him sit in a wheelchair. Uh, so then Michael decides, like, okay, I'll do it. I'll be the first one to go. And um, the instructor says you got to do it like a certain beats per minute, and Michael's like, that's really difficult. Like, how am I going to know that? She tells him to do it to the beat of "Staying Alive" by the Bee Gees. So Michael's like, oh, I love that song, and then he starts singing "I Will Survive," which then the whole office starts singing "Staying Alive." Um, and then the instructor's like, well, all you guys were singing and no one was uh, breathing air or doing compressions, so you lost them. It's like, well, anybody know what we do next? And then Dwight's like, we check to see if they have an organ donor card. It's like, and the woman's like, okay. And then Dwight says, we only have precious minutes to harvest. He pulls up this like buck knife and buries it into the CPR dummy's chest. He's like, first we got to get the heart, the precious heart. Everybody's screaming and going nuts, and we got people like oh my god, Dwight, and all this, and all of a sudden you hear Dwight in the background, and he turns around, and he's like, Clarice. And he's got like, he cut the face off the mannequin and put it on his face. Which in turn he has to go back to New York and sit in front of David Wallace again and be reprimanded.
And I think one of the best parts of this second meeting is when David Wallace is like, this costs us $5,300. And he's like, a mannequin costs $3,500.
And Michael says,
Michael says that, yeah.
and like David Wallace just like looks at him, and then you know David Wallace says to Dwight, but why did you find it necessary to cut the face off the CPR dummy? And Dwight drops one of the best Dwight lines where he says, when I saw it in the movie, I didn't think it was very realistic. Turns out it's pretty realistic. He's of course referencing Silence of the Lambs,
Uh,
which you've actually never seen.
no, but I'm familiar enough with it to understand what.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, which is definitely a movie I'm gonna have to make you watch sometime because I think you'd really enjoy it.
yeah, we
Uh,
will.
so from then on, now throughout the whole episode, Dwight's trying to get everybody to accept uh, his apology for what he did, and you know, obviously it's insincere. Like, here, I got a statement of my apology, regret, and he just like reads it off paper. I state my regret, and of course nobody accepts it because he's a jerk. And now Michael's trying to get everyone to relax, because of Stanley's heart attack, and he knows that like he doesn't want to accept that he is like slightly responsible for Stanley's stress. So they have like this weird yoga meditation thing, and then and it's just he's Stanley's got this stress reader. Like anytime Michael comes near him, it goes off. Um, and after this, we get where we mentioned Jack Black. So Pam and Jim decide that they're going to watch like these bootlegged movies with Andy because he has like a way to get a hold of them. And the movie they're watching is called Mrs. Albert Hannah, and it's starring Jack Black, Jessica Alba, and Cloris Leachman. Where basically Jack Black and Jessica Alba are a couple. Um, they're engaged, but slowly Jack Black's character starts falling in love with Jessica Alba's grandmother, who's played by Cloris Leachman. uh, and at the same time, while they're watching it, Jim and Pam are like discussing Pam's like parents' separation,
Mm-hmm.
and but Andy like misconstrues what they're saying as being directed towards like the characters in the film, and he thinks that they have like a super like in-depth look at this, and he thinks they're movie geniuses. So after this we get like this is a two-part episode. It was broken into two parts.
Mm-hmm.
So like the second part, Michael believes the employees are all stressed because they're reluctant to express how they feel. So he decides to organize like a roast of himself in the warehouse, which is just a terrible idea.
Best idea
Uh,
ever.
yeah. So Dwight like masked his apology letter sign up thing as a sign up sheet for the roast, and he gets like all the signatures but Phyllis.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we get like the roast, and everybody's just like telling these like terrible things about Michael.
Awesomely hilarious.
Yeah, where um, Jim makes fun of Michael screwing up words, and Pam's got like all these like silly jokes. Where like what you say every 10 minutes, people in the U.S. or someone in the U.S. is like taken by an internet scam. That man's name is Michael Scott. um, it's like if you ever put sunblock on a window, you might be Michael Scott.
Yeah, that was Angela's jokes.
Yeah.
The Michael Scott ones.
Uh, and then Dwight tries to go up there and defend him, but Michael called him an idiot, and he's like, just let him do this. And Dwight's like, "Are you calling me an idiot? You short, pathetic little man. You don't even own the land."
That's the best line.
Oh, so which all this ends, everybody's just like saying all this stuff to Michael, and of course it ends with him leaving and feeling bad for himself. He doesn't show up the next day. Everybody kind of like regrets what they said to Michael, because they didn't want to hurt his feelings that bad.
Not that bad.
Yeah, not that
A
bad.
little bit, but not that bad.
Dwight finally manages to trick Phyllis into signing his letter because he bribed a mailman to sign for a package. It was actually a sign-up sheet. Then we get to see Michael sitting in a park throwing down bread for pigeons that just aren't there because it's the winter.
And throwing full slices of bread.
Yeah, which is hilarious. Um, yeah, everybody's wondering where he's at. He actually ends up coming back, and then he roasts every one of the coworkers. Uh, I think I remember all of them. Where he's like, "Jim, you're 6'7" and you weigh 100 pounds. Gumby has a better body than you." um,
Pam, you flunked out of art school. Boom, roasted.
then after everyone was just boom roasted. Meredith, you've slept with so many guys, you're starting to look like one. Boom roasted. Where's Angela? Oh, there you are. I didn't see you behind that grain of rice. Boom roasted.
Kevin, I couldn't decide between a dumb joke and a fat joke. Boom, roasted.
Uh, he's like, Oscar, you're gay. Boom, roasted. Andy, Cordell called. They say you suck. And you're gayer than Oscar. Boom, roasted.
Oh
Then the
man.
last one, he says, Stanley, you crush your wife during sex and your heart sucks. Boom, roasted. And like during all this, like Stanley just starts laughing. And it like breaks all the tension. And then um, Michael like thanks everybody, and everybody applauds him. Uh, so we get we get Jim, Pam, and Andy still watching this movie again. They're watching like bits and pieces on their lunch, and they're still talking about Pam's parents, and Andy, of course, like still thinks that they're super insightful and all this stuff. And at the same time, like the movie, we see Jack Black's character like falling in love with Cloris Leachman. There's like some really awkward scenes of like her in the bathtub and
Them making out.
like yeah, like the make out and everything, which really only would work with those two actors. Like Jack Black, he's known for like some crazy off the wall things. He'll do anything to make people laugh. And Cloris Leachman, she's kind of the same way. Like usually the characters she would play later in life were just um the crazy uh kind of blue collar grandma. Like I don't know if you've seen any of her other stuff, but she's always really funny. She actually passed away not too long ago, which was kind of sad because I always enjoyed her and everything she was in.
Mm.
She's a funny old lady. But we find out that something Jim said to Pam's dad made him want to leave Pam's mom. And then we find out that what it was is that uh, Jim was saying how strongly he feels for Pam, and Pam's dad said he's never really felt that way with Pam's mom.
Hmm.
And then kind of just the episode kind of winds down from there, where we kind of see the end, where uh, Jack Black and Cloris Leachman in the movie, where Cloris Leachman decides that she doesn't want anything to do with Jack Black, and um, then there's a scene in this version that we watched online that I swear I've never seen before. So Jack Black like walks up to the house, and for Cloris Leachman, and then he finds out that she uh, like has a new younger boyfriend, and then he walks away heartbroken.
I've
Which
seen it. I've seen that before.
oh really? I don't think I have ever seen that part.
Yeah, I specifically remember it because that look that she gives him, like, because Jack Black's in the window, sees them, and she sees him in the window,
Hmm.
and like this really like creepy connection stare. And I remembered that. I was just like, super awkward. So,
Oh yeah, just great. But yeah, man, this is like probably I always say the dinner party of The Office is my favorite episode, and this
mhm.
is a close second.
Oh yeah.
Like anytime I've gone back and rewatched this series, this is one I always look forward to watching.
Hmm.
Even just dude, just watching that opening, that was like the best way to start this episode.
So good. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably put this one before the dinner party personally.
Mm,
The dinner party has more of that awkward,
yeah.
uncomfortable comedy, and I mean hilarious. I enjoy it, but I enjoy, I don't know what you want to call it, regular comedy more
Mm,
because it's not as uncomfortable. So yeah, I would probably say that I would put this one before the dinner party, but
yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, these are pretty close for me. So There's just something about the dinner party one though that always makes me laugh.
Oh yeah, it's still. I mean, it's like splitting hairs.
So something I noticed this time around, which I never really noticed before, Ryan isn't in the episode.
Is he at corporate?
It was, I think it was after that. I think maybe it was when he went to jail,
Oh, okay.
screwing over the company. I guess I just never really thought about it because I saw his name was in the credits, but I mean he's also a writer.
Yeah.
But yeah, he doesn't show up in the episode. Um, and I don't know, just mention some of the scenes that are always great. A cold opening for sure. The acting is amazing.
Do
Uh,
you like the first half or the second half better? Do you like the safety part of the episode, or do you like the roast part of the episode
oh, I
better?
like the first part, the safety part.
Okay. I don't know. Like I was kind of thinking about that, and it's so tough to say because I it's so good the Dwight shenanigans at the beginning, but
Yeah,
the the best part for me is the boom roasted segment.
yeah, those were really good. Those really got me laughing the first time I watched it for sure. Um, I don't know this that part where Dwight cuts the face off the dummy and he turns around and it's like terrifying. Like a lot of times I have that picture, like I post that picture, like have it as my profile picture on Halloween time because it's just terrifying. It's like pretty much Dwight's version of Leatherface.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Steve Carell knocks out of the park in this one. Rainn Wilson, like this, the stuff he does in this episode almost like cements the Dwight character as like one of the best TV characters of all time.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting too that I noticed in this one is there were no pranks.
Yeah,
Like
that's true.
Jim didn't try to pull anything on Dwight or anything like that. I mean, you essentially Dwight kind of did a prank with the fake drill, but
This has been a simulation. Yeah.
one thing that I mean, like I said, I forgot about the whole Jack Black section of
Hmm.
this episode or two-part series, but it's really interesting because then having watched it, I realized that this is maybe one of the most bipolar episodes just
Okay.
because there's so much hilarious content with the roast and the safety
Hmm.
portion. And then you also have the super serious, super dramatic splitting of Pam's parents with the whole. Because, I mean, up until before you realize why they split up, I mean, super serious, super emotional. Like, you don't know what's going on. And Pam is like, super emotional, and then they drop the whole like I don't know lovey-dovey thing that
Yeah.
she talks about at the end, and so it's just they put so much hilarious content and then they cram in this super emotional part too. So I just but the super emotional part always gets lost in the hilarity, really.
Yeah, pretty much. Um, this is one of those shows that usually can handle uh, tonal change,
Hmm.
unlike Baywatch. Oh, so I guess another one of my favorite parts in this episode comes from the Jack Black and Cloris Leachman movie, where they're having like an argument because he did something I don't remember what it was now, but she's sitting in a chair that like takes her up the stairs. And she's going like trying to leave him, and she's like slowly taking this chair up the stairs while he's like calling for her. And just typical Jack Black craziness where he's like, Lily, come back. He's like, hit the reverse button. Reverse the button. I don't know why that always makes me laugh where he just yells reverse the button like
Yeah.
frantically. That's just I don't know if you've ever listened to like old school Tenacious D.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, like some of those skits and stuff they had, it reminds me of that.
dude,
I
the
think
tribute to the song, greatest song ever written, man. I don't know why, but that song to me is just so good.
dude, a lot of their songs are good. And I was just gonna say that I feel like Jack Black's acting ability gets kind of overshadowed by his crazy antics
I can
because
definitely agree.
he's a good actor, I'll say that.
Yeah, well, his versatility, because I mean, like what he did in Jumanji,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, I would agree
that's
with that.
I mean, you can talk about his antics all you want, but he really kind of did show his range with that. So
Yeah, that's true.
maybe we might need a Jack Black month.
A Jack Black highlight.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, you want to get into the trivia part?
Rock.
I got a few interesting things here. So, this episode aired on NBC directly following Super Bowl between the Steelers and the Cardinals. It was a rare instance of the show airing on a Sunday instead of the traditional Thursday.
Huh.
I'll always remember that because this is the first episode of The Office I ever watched.
Interesting.
Since it was after the Super Bowl, it brought in over 20 million viewers, which was the most watched episode of the entire series.
Oh man, I can only imagine how many people got on board after watching that episode.
Yeah. So it won an Emmy Award for Outstanding Directing for a Comedy Series,
Huh.
which I kind of get it.
Yeah.
So the episode was written by Paul Lieberstein, aka Toby. In writing the script for the episode, he said that he sought to appeal newcomers to the series and attract them to the show without alienating regular viewers. He said, "We wanted to do a standalone comedy episode that would bring people in. The script was dressed less to drew less attention to long-standing story arcs, which new viewers wouldn't understand. Um, so he almost had an air of a pilot in a way,
Mm-hmm.
which they like reintroduced everything, and they wanted to be extremely funny and funny like right from the get-go, which Toby knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, Toby, congratulations. That's probably like the best thing he contributed.
He wrote a lot of the episodes, I know that,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
directed.
it's so interesting to put it in that perspective because you step back from it and I mean, well, you even said it was the first time you watched the show. So,
Yeah, and it brought me in. After that, I wanted to watch more of it.
yeah, they definitely did do a good job because you didn't really need to know any of the background story. I mean, it was easy to tell that, Jim and Pam were together. They were talking about their parents, her parents, you didn't need a backstory. Um, it, yeah, everything was pretty straightforward and really well done.
Yeah, and the crazy, hectic, cold opening for the show really brought you in because, I mean, after the Super Bowl gets over with, they do like the trophy presentation and it kind of just ends.
Mm.
So, all these people that, the Super Bowl is always the most watched thing during a year. And I think that might be the most watched Super Bowl of all time.
Oh,
I think I saw something about that too. But yeah, it just was a great setup for this episode to draw on more viewers, which I mean ended up being like the most watched show on TV there
hmm.
for a while. Um, so a funny thing about the CPR thing, in 2019, a man in Arizona helped a man having a heart attack by remembering the CPR training in this episode, which is funny because I remember a couple of years ago, my father-in-law, he works for GM and they had like a CPR training course. And he said that the person presenting it had them watch that part from the episode.
Nice.
Yeah, pretty funny. So that is pretty much it. Let's get into grades. So since TV episode, all there is IMDb. I don't know if you saw it, but what do you think it is?
I did not see it. I do my best to not stumble across that stuff. I am gonna give it or guess that's 8.1.
Dude, you're way off. It's a 9.7.
Oh man, dang! I keep forgetting. I don't know why, but I always thought that like um, IMDb usually capped most of its stuff at like 9.5.
A lot of movies do, but TV shows,
Get higher. Okay,
I think they feel like if you're got enough energy to go to a TV series, find a certain episode, and grade it, then you're probably going to be a pretty favorable.
true. Interesting.
Most TV shows that like lasted a long time at least have like one episode that's in the high eights or nine.
Okay,
So I know The Office has a few of them.
I will have to
The,
bear that
the
in
Dinner
mind.
Party's another one. Scott's Tots.
Oh gosh. See, that's another awkward comedy or yeah,
Yeah,
awkward comedy one. That
cringe
one
humor. Yeah,
cringeworthy.
but what would you give this?
I would give this easily 5 out of 5 rock. Don't even have to think about it. Especially then too doing that trivia thing about how they made it kind of like a second pilot to be
Yeah,
able to introduce people to the show. I mean, it just makes it all the more better about the transition of getting people interested in the show. They really knocked out of the park with this one. Like I said, this is probably ahead of the Dinner Party for me, and it's probably it might be my favorite one from the show. So
yeah, it's right up there for me too. And I mean, easy grade, 5 out of 5. Like I said, it's one of my favorites. Every time I watch it, I laugh. There's a lot of things that always crack me up about it. The Dwight with the mannequin face on it is something I'll never get out of my head, just because it's just beyond hilarious and terrifying. Um, Actually, when I posted the the reminder of what episode is coming this week, it was that picture. It pretty much has to be. Uh, Acting's great, writing is great. Just yeah, I mean, it's really the episode that kind of brought this show to my attention and made me go through and watch it from the beginning and like
yeah,
really get hooked to the show. And since then, I probably watched the entire series about 12 times.
yeah.
That's just like a ballpark guess there. Uh, might be my most watched TV series ever, except for maybe The Simpsons,
Okay.
which I've seen just tons of times. I mean, most people have.
I That's one show that I've barely seen any of, to be honest.
I think you'd probably enjoy it. I
Probably
mean,
I
the whole thing is on Disney Plus, so if you ever had the itch to watch any of it,
yeah,
it's
like
still funny.
I watched I own the latest Simpsons movie and it's hilarious. Like I enjoy it. But yeah, it's just one of those things I was late to the game and I've never really gone back to rewatch it. Like all the cartoon comedies I go back to watch is like Family Guy, sometimes American Dad.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know why I can't think of some of the other ones, but yeah,
King
I
of the
just
Hill.
yeah, what I've watched a decent amount of King of the Hill. I haven't watched the whole thing, but yeah, I just never really went back to watch The Simpsons for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's a show that I don't go back and watch it too much, but I've seen it so many times, and it's one of those shows that's like super like easily quotable.
Hmm.
But yeah, um anything else? Any parting words?
If there is somehow somebody who's listening who has not watched this episode, even if you're not familiar with The Office, this is one of those where it's just like absolutely worth your while to watch.
Oh
Like
yeah, for sure.
this is one of those things where I give it the 5 out of 5 where it is definitely I would tell anybody watch it. You know, it might not be 5 out of 5 for everybody, but I feel like anyone and everyone could find enjoyment from it.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. If you haven't watched this, we can't be friends. Oh, so next week we are continuing on with pretty much the random month. I notice we have almost like a slight theme, like a loose theme of Harrison Ford.
Okay.
We watched Empire, and then next week we are watching Air Force One, which is something I've only seen maybe twice. I enjoyed it, but so I'm kind of excited to watch it again because I remember really enjoying it.
Get off my plane.
It was actually pretty good. So yeah, come by next week, and we're going to be talking about Air Force One. Until then, as always, be kind, rewind.
What I hate about you, you really suck as a ball. You're the loosiest, jerkiest, and you're dumber than applesauce. We're stuck listening to you all day. Stanley tried to die just to get away. Well, it's true. That's what I hate about you. That's what I hate about